Welcome to this second conversation for Stowe Prize. We are celebrating the life and writing of Albert Woodfox, author of Solitary. He wins the Stowe Prize for his memoir of more than 4 decades in solitary confinement for a crime he did not commit. My name is Brianne Greenfield. I'm the executive director of the Harriet Beecher Stowe Center, a historic house museum, program center, and research library in historic Hartford, Connecticut. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you for celebrating Albert and Stowe Prize 2020. And thank you for your support as we navigate, all of us, this challenging pandemic. Of receiving Stowe Prize, Albert Woodfox said, "It's an affirmation of the power of writing about the human experience to enlighten and hopefully influence our world for the better." We will now move quickly to our program. So join me now in welcoming activist and author Albert Woodfox and award-winning WTNH journalist Samaia Hernandez. This program is possible because of the generosity of our sponsors and donors, including our legacy presenting sponsor, the Hartford. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your involvement in our work, for your attention, and for your support.
Thank you so much, Brianne. I am so excited to join you right now. I am grateful for the Stowe Center, for the work that you do, and mainly for the supporters as well that were able to put this on. I want to congratulate you, Mr. Woodfox, on receiving this award and on the courage that it took to write this book, to go into the deep, dark places that you had to go to tell your story. And I really want to jump right into that. I also want to let you know we're going to get to some viewer questions after the first Stowe Prize we submitted. We asked people for questions and they sent those back to us. So we're going to get to some of those, but I do want to get straight to you, Mr. Woodfox. Welcome, congratulations. And I have a question. Since your life has changed, since you left prison, do you feel free?
Freedom to me, because of my confinement, solitary confinement for so long, it's an abstract concept, mentally, philosophically, and emotionally, I was free long before physically being free. I think that contributed to me being able to maintain hope and purpose, direction. I felt as though a lot of what I was doing in prison was having some effect in society through the people who had learned about the A3 and who had rallied to our cause and were fighting for our eventual or successful release from prison for all three of us. So, I thought that what I was doing was very relevant to what was happening in society.
You talk about the idea of being unbroken by 40 years in solitary confinement, and I really do think that it's so profound for us to even understand what 40 years in solitary confinement means. But I want to also really understand what it meant for you to be unbroken by it and how you did that, how you're still doing that.
When I was a young teenager, my mom used to, and it took me a long time to really understand what she was saying. My mom used to tell me, she said, "Boy, when you get up in the morning and look in the mirror, you want to be proud of what's looking back at you." And so, that was one of the principles that, foundation I stayed on. I was true to my political beliefs. I was a member of the Black Panther Party. I consider myself to be a social activist. I was a lover of humanity, and I wanted the very best for and from humanity. And so, many times through all of the brutality and the pain and suffering, Robert Harmon and I were given the opportunities to renounce this and to be released from solitary confinement. And of course, this was not an option for us. And, it was almost comical, when they would, ask us this. So that's what I mean, when I see it unbroken. They never, no matter what they did to me, and believe me, they did a lot, physically, mentally, emotionally, to try to break me. But I never lost faith in myself. I never lost faith in my comrades and friends, and I never lost faith in the moral principles and values taught to me by the Black Panther Party.
One of the things that stood out to me in reading the book is you talked about how you would look around and there were a lot of men whose spirits were broken. Prison did break them, and you could see that in them. Do you think that the difference between you and them was the fact that you had this really strong foundation from your mother?
Oh yeah, and the fact that knowledge is a very powerful weapon. So it allows you to understand the situation at hand or the environment you're in and stuff. So I think that was a difference. Being in the Black Panther Party and developing an awareness, developing a political philosophy, developing a personal and political belief, gave me a purpose, gave me something to struggle towards, something to maintain. Whereas a lot of these guys who were housed in solitary had become institutionalized. And what we mean by that is that they had turned towards the prison culture as a means of survival. And so they had no real solid foundation to stand on. And the very philosophy and culture that they embraced contributed to them being broken. And so, I think that was, if there was a difference, I think that was the difference for myself, or Harmon Wallace and Robert Hillary King.
And I think you demonstrated courage and strength really early on. I mean, even when you describe still being caught up in it all, when you were still doing things that got you arrested in the first place, you had a moment where you became addicted to drugs, but then you pulled yourself off of that. And that to me is really remarkable. And a lot of people can't do that. Talk to me about that. I mean, it was a really short part of the book, but it really struck me, having known family members and people who have fell victim to addiction. Talk to me about that. I thought that was really interesting.
It was so strange. I had become very addicted to drugs. I was shooting something like 400 or 500 hours a day in heroin at that time, which is an awful addictive drug. And it's so strange. You can call it an epiphany or whatever, but I remember one day I was sitting down, and when you start using drugs, the high is so tremendous, but then when you become addicted, you're no longer shooting drugs or using drugs for the high. You're using drugs not to be sick, and not to suffer withdrawal symptoms and stuff. And I remember one day I was sitting down. At the time, my partner was a young woman who had absolutely nothing to do with the game. And I had, even to this day, I don't understood. She saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, And it's just, this feeling came over me, and I'm like, I don't want to do this no more. It wasn't a build up or a chain of events. It was just, this feeling just came over me, and I'm like, I don't want to do this no more. And she asked me, her name was Selena, and she asked me what I meant, and I said, I don't want to get high anymore. I'm tired of doing this. I'm sick and tired of it. And she said, well, what you gonna do? And I said, well, I'm gonna stop using, but it's gonna be very difficult. And I explained to her because I had witnessed other guys either couldn't get heroin at the time, or who also, for whatever reason, had decided to get off of it. So I knew the symptoms that they went through and stuff. And so I explained it to her. And the one thing I emphasize is you can't let me get out of this apartment. We were living in an apartment together. And you can't let me get out of this apartment. No matter, I'm gonna lie, I'm gonna threaten, I'm gonna get physical, whatever. You have to stick with me. And to her credit, she said, I got you, And it took me about, I don't know, a little over a week to go from the physical withdrawal, the pain and the drawing up and all the other symptoms that you go through. The pain actually feel like your bones are exploding. When heroin is a horrible, horrible drug, and people should never ever use it. And so it took about 2 weeks, where I could start to keep food on my stomach and stuff, and slowly, my strength started to return and stuff. And I can honestly say, I haven't used drugs since. And I actually hate to even use prescription drugs when required, And one of the things that Les always get on me about is taking medication. It's just unbelievable. The feeling of not being in control of yourself, and was I think the only feeling that I can remember at that time. I just didn't like not being in control of myself.
I want to get back to the Panthers in a minute because that's really, really important. But first, what you just said led me to a question here that was submitted. And this is from Carrie Nicewander from Emmanuel Congregation, right next to the Stowe Center, our friends right next door. She said that she was struck by the part when you were in that 6th grade class and you say that there was something in that 6th grade social studies class and you realize that something was terribly wrong in the world. You said, I understood that something was terribly wrong in the world and nobody was talking about it. And this was just from something that you were studying in that 6th grade class. She says she can really relate to that, but she wants to understand what might have changed the trajectory of your life path. Do you think there's something that may have changed things and prevented you from falling into the criminal justice system? Is that even an option?
Yeah, the particular, and a lot of this is hindsight. At the time I didn't have the level of consciousness, the education, or the wisdom, to understand what was going on. But there was something innate in me. And the issue itself was my mom. My mom was functionally illiterate. And I have 4 other brothers and sisters. Unfortunately, I've lost both my mom and my sister. And they were using as examples the worst people in society, the worst people in humanity, people who have no moral principles, no values, no goals in life and stuff. And and some of the examples they use is prostitution and thievery and my mom, because of being an African American woman in an extremely racist society, uneducated, these are some of the things she was forced to do in order to put a roof over our head and food on the table and clothes. So in effect, they were teaching me, and they were successful to any respect I had for my mom, I lost it. And I actually, at one point, hated my mom because she represented what I was being taught in school as being a worthless human being. And so that was, but there was something inside of me that resisted, because what they were telling me was coming out of textbook. And what my life, my mom, never living in like an oasis in the ghetto or poor neighborhood, I never knew what it was to be hungry. I never knew what it was not to have adequate clothes. I never knew what it was to sleep in the street or whatever, and this was all attributed to my mom. And throughout all of this, I can never, ever remember seeing my mom being broken, seeing her spirit being stripped away, seeing her determination being broken. And some of my most darkest moments in solitary, I would always remember those images. I would always remember my mom, and never seeing her, no matter what she was doing, never seeing her being ashamed of herself, or never seeing her selling for second best. She demanded the best from us. And so these are the things that, the foundation of memories that I relied upon, throughout my, and even now, if you read the book, I'm sure you're familiar with the poem Echoes. And, I still hear echoes to this day from, the wisdom and the strength of my mom.
Let's talk about the Panthers, because it's something that I believe is still very misunderstood. And do you feel like what ended up happening to you in your story is so deeply connected to the fact that you are a Panther? Talk to me about what it means to be a Panther, and then talk to me about some of the parallels that you may be seeing with Black Lives Matter right now.
Being a Panther was, in one word, is pride. Being proud of being African American, being proud of being humanitarian, being proud of being a man, and having the ability to the wisdom to analyze situations and to develop theory and what I feel is a solution to solve whatever issue that's at hand. So the Panthers. The one remarkable thing I found about the Panthers is that I was a 21, 22-year-old man in prison with a 50-year sentence, which at that time was like a death sentence. And the Panthers still saw something in me. It was always someone or a group seeing something in me that at that time I didn't have the wisdom to see in myself. And I didn't know of any organizations at that time would reach into the depths of the beast of the belly or prison, and say, we want you to come and we want you to be a part of us. There's something about you. There's something special in you. And you may not see it now, but if you join us, if you fight with us, if you struggle with us, if you believe in us, then that someday you will see what we see. And that's, pretty much the way my life took, It took me, it wasn't this light going off in my head situation, but the Panthers gave me a foundation. And it took me about 20 years where I had re-educated myself and had developed enough wisdom where I was able to define who I was, who I wanted to be, and what I would dedicate my life to. And so that's, the power of the Black Panther Party. As far as the party, now there is a push to a lot of the Panther alumni in this country to take the control of the narrative of who the Black Panther Party was. For 50-something years, the federal government had an uninterrupted, unchallenged shaping of what the Panther Party was and what they was about. And so you have a situation now where some of the alumni of the Black Panther Party is fighting back, reshaping the narrative, and challenging the description of the federal government as to what the Black Panther Party was. And when most people, realize, the tremendous work that the Black Panther Party did, particularly for the African American community, they are shocked.
And do you see parallels between what happened to you and what happened to former Panthers and the Black Lives Matter movement?
Oh yeah, I think Robert Harmon and I, we were supporters of the Black Lives Matter long before the rest of America caught up. I'll just say that. It may sound a little arrogant, but we saw the potential of the Black Lives Matter movement, and the measuring stick was, if society is moving, it's not society as a whole, but if the institutions of society is moving so hard to crush this movement, then it has to be a very solid, progressive movement. Why else would they spend so much time and so much energy, to crush the Black Lives movement in its emphasis stage, And because of the dedication and the loyalty and the love of humanity of the young leaders and young people in the Black Lives Matter, eventually America and the world, caught up to what they were struggling for. And that is, not to be better, but to be equal in humanity. And, Robert and I'm fortunate we lost Harmon 3 days after he won his freedom. But Robert and I, we have done a lot of traveling, and everywhere we went, and we knew that there was a Black Lives Matter movement, we asked the host who invited us to make it a point to let us meet with these young men and women. And we thought that was very successful because we had the opportunity to sit down a couple of hours and learn from them and teach them based upon our experience. So, I think the fact that 40, 50 years later, you still have members of the Black Panther Party still in prison, for because of the COINTEL programs, the success of it, it speaks to the volume, the fact that these men and women who are still in prison still have not and will not renounce their allegiance and membership in the Black Panther Party, I think goes to the strength of what the party stood for.
How does it make you feel when you hear the president talk about law and order?
Well, I can't use I just say, what hypocrisy, what hypocrisy, and I've been aware of Donald Trump way before he became president. And we all remember the 4-page ad he took out on the young man who was framed for rape, the woman in New York, and calling for the death penalty, and the suits that, what amazes me is that right now, even though Joe Biden is leading in the polls, there is still a question of a doubt. All the inhumane things that this man has done towards humanity, especially to African Americans and other minorities and poor people in this country, that there is still an outside chance that he could be reelected. It is amazing, but hopefully, I've already voted early. I've already, cast my say-so in this matter, along with, many things. There are records being set across the country as for early voting And in spite of all the obstacles that's being placed in the path of voters, people are still turning out. So there is hope.
And I want to get to one of the questions that was submitted to us, and this is from Shawnee Baldwin of Glastonbury. She wants to know, how do we dismantle the broken prison system and the legacy of slavery connected to it? And I think we might want to talk about that a little bit, because I think for people of color, it's instinctual. I mean, I like to often say, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a person of color anywhere in this country that doesn't have a connection to the criminal justice system. And it's sad, but true. I mean, my father went to prison for 5 years when I was a baby, and my family was broken after that. And there are ways I still struggle to recover from that to this day. And that's just me. And I don't know a single person of color that doesn't have a connection to the criminal justice system. Talk to me about that connection to slavery, and then let's try to get to her question: how do we dismantle this system if it's broken?
Well, first of all, we talk a lot about mass incarceration. For me, mass incarceration started in 1619, when the first African slaves were brought to America. And it is a continuation throughout chattel slavery and throughout, during and after the Civil War. And, I have issues with some of the, I guess you could say, narrative that put forward. I mean, Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, the proclamation. And what most people don't even know, if you take the time to read the proclamation, you will see that it only applied to states that were in rebellion against the Union. So you had some states where slavery was still legal and still a blessing, So, I have a problem with that concept. I say he made a path for African Americans and Africans to be free in this country, but it was our own initiative. It was on our own desire. The Underground Railroad existed long before Lincoln's proclamation. People risked their lives and lost their lives in many cases in their thirst for freedom. Their thirst to be a part of humanity. But I think those are the kind of things that help me as I learn about them. It's sad, but I didn't know about the contribution of African American and African people to civilizations until I was in my 40s. These are things I should have known in institutions of society, such as schools. I should have had teachers that brought out of me what is inside of me rather than suppress it. And
I want to hear your thoughts on how we change the criminal justice system as it exists. And particularly for you, I mean, you spent so much time at a place called Angola, a place named after the slaves who once worked on that land. I mean, that is profound to me. Did you feel like a slave while you were there? Is the criminal justice system, how do you address that? What do we do? Where to go from here?
That is a very difficult question. Me, I believe in materialism and dialectics. So I believe that contradictions cause change. Prisons-wise, I think, it's not going to be an overnight process, but we have, and I think you see the work being done now where people are raising what we call raise the level of conscience, making people aware that something is morally wrong. Robert has a saying that, morality and legality don't meet at the altar, and we have laws in this country, that are designed specifically to feed into the prison system. Most people don't know, under the 13th Amendment, slavery is still legal in this country. You know, anyone who has been duly convicted of a felony becomes a slave of the state. Now, if you go to the definition of slave, is a person held against their will in bondage and have absolutely no rights, not even the right to be recognized as a human being. You know, so you have this situation where first you have to start raising the level of consciousness of humanity. And from that point, you have to encourage people to the necessity of civilian oversight of all state institutions, both federal and state. And then you have to start taking concrete steps to change some of the laws. You have to set, but more than anything, you have to put into place consequences for the acts of public officials, no matter what institution they belong. Right now, we have a situation in American society and around the world where the police can virtually do what they want, and they do it under the quote of immunity, and we have to change that. We have to make them accountable individually, and the institution as a whole accountable for the things they do. And you see emphasis of that happening now, where slowly we are chipping away at this immunity, blanket immunity that all federal things, enjoy. And so I think that is a start. We have to change the concept of prison. We have to do away with prisons that exist of concrete and bars, and start. We have to have a prison program that works towards education and teaching people moral values, teaching people how to re-enter society, how to become a part of society. But it is a two-pronged struggle, because getting a person out of prison is only half the job. I've sat in on a lot of meetings, and people have a lot of ideas, and I always ask them, you get people out of prison, then what? There are so many laws out there. You can't live in a certain place. You can't hold a certain job. You can't hold a certain license and stuff. And a lot of people who come, you go to prison. Why is it that a human being has to go to prison and realize, because of their imprisonment, that they have unbelievable skills and talents? Prison is not the place to make people realize this. Schools and universities are the places that people should realize that they have this, and that they can contribute, that they all have a self-worth. And above all, we have got to do something about the economic system we got. We've got to develop a better system of the distribution of the wealth in this country and around the world. That is, one of the sayings the guys in prison always say, say, if I can't get it the right way, I'm gonna get it any way I can. So while and one of the reasons why I'm reluctant to condemn guys who have broken the law and women who have broken the law is because I know what it is. I know from experience what it is to be hungry. I know from experience what it is to not be able to get a job, no matter how qualified you are, or to not get a position, no matter how skillful you are. So we have to start, I think, with the economic system, which determines everything else.
And because we're running low on time, there's something I really want to know. Tell me why you wrote this book.
One of the things Robert and Harmon and I used to always talk about is that people in society, and particularly our families, not knowing what's going on in prisons. especially solitary, the prison within a prison. And I felt as though especially after we lost Harmon, that it was a responsibility and an obligation to humanity to show the people what is really going on in this country, in the prison system. That people are not born criminals. They come from families. They come from mothers, fathers, grandparents, uncles, brothers, sisters, And because of the economic situation and the archaic laws that's on the book, in my generation, 1 out of every 3 Black men was destined to be in prison. Not because they deserved to be there. This was preordained even before they were born, even before, their mom brought them into the world, And so I just figured, after spending so much time and re-educating myself and developing wisdom from my experience, that the people of America and the world had to know that there is a different way, there is a better way. And that was, the strange thing about it, I didn't want to write the book while I was in prison because I felt that would be giving up. I said, I'm going to write this book and I'm going to write it in freedom. And thankfully, and the biggest surprise is the wonderful organization like the Stowe Center acknowledging this book and the way it has been embraced by the world. The book is in Germany now, Australia. We just started publishing in Spain, and this is beyond any goals I had when I wrote this book. I just wanted to get all of this pain and suffering and experiences from within my soul and into the hands of the people in this country.
And I really want to thank you for writing it. It really answered a lot of questions for someone like me, who is the daughter and the product of an incarcerated parent. I never had answers to. I never knew what it was like. I never even really knew what happened. And it really answered so many questions for me. And I think it'll do that for so many others. I want to thank you so much for writing this book. I want to congratulate you on this award and thank the Harriet Beecher Stowe Center and all of the wonderful people that continue to support the work that the Harriet Beecher Stowe Center does. Please visit the center in 2021. We are praying that we will move past this COVID situation that has prevented people from doing that right now. But there are still so many wonderful things that the Stowe Center is doing, and you can find all of that on their website. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And before I go out again, I want to thank Amy Hoffnagel and all the other staff at the Harriet Beecher Stowe Center. And thank you so much for acknowledging this book. I'm sure the people with so much respect for the Stowe Center will be encouraged to read. Again, thank you so much, Harriet Beecher Stowe Center. Thank you.